Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy, author of epic fantasy romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Ah, oh, it's so good. Today is, say it with me, people, it is Friday. Woohoo! Um, I wanted to say 8:30. It's also 8:30. It is September 27th. Not quite the last podcast of September, but getting there. Uh, just amazing weather here. Gorgeous, gorgeous fall weather. Feeling for my people down in Florida. Uh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, sucks. Um, I've been thinking about the Taylor Swift Florence and the Machine song, Florida. And it's, in a weird coincidence, I've also been reading The Light Pirate by some author, by Lily Brooks Dalton. You would think I would be better at remembering author names, being one, alas. Uh, First book I've read of hers, reading it for my science fiction book, fantasy book club. And it's all about climate change, a little bit very near future, post apocalyptic. Takes place in a coastal town in Florida, which is repeatedly hit by devastating hurricanes. It's a good book. It's interesting. It's a fast read. Uh, I I had issues with the beginning. In fact, I want to send a note to my friend. I was trying to decide why this beginning bothered me, and I think I've put my finger on it. That I don't know. It bothers me when a female character's role in the story is to give birth to a character who is actually the significant one. It feels like a form of fridging to me. I really hate it when, like, okay, I love the movie Terminator, and I'm going to spoiler here because I feel like the later it's been out long enough, right? We could go into an in depth thing on Terminator, but the first Terminator movie, um, the character of Sarah turns out to be important because she gives birth to the hero. And that's the whole reason they're saving her, is because she is the holy vessel who gives birth to the person who's actually important. Now they remedy this in later movies in a way that I found immensely satisfying. I remember when we saw the trailer for, well, was it Terminator 2, and it showed Sarah in prison doing pull-ups, and you saw her big guns, and I think every woman I knew, we were all like, oh yes, because even though the plot twist in Terminator 1 is immensely satisfying and interesting, that the guy who comes to save her turns out to be the guy who impregnates her, who is the father of the hero that sent him back in time to, I mean, it's great stuff, but it's also kind of annoying because she's just the hapless womb, walking womb. And it was great to see her become this very strong and determined figure in later stories. So it like wasn't only you that felt that way. So anyway, all of that was a little bit off track, but yeah, the Light Pirate, Hurricane Devastation. Um, I have other issues with the book, but I won't I won't rant about them, especially since so far I like it. Okay, I'm going to rant just a teeny bit. I feel like climate change post apocalypse, which I can't even say, post apocalyptic, whatever. That view is low hanging fruit. And obviously it's important, and maybe I'm just one of those people that think that it's obviously so important that I don't know. I don't find it interesting to read about. There we are. But my friend Jim Sorensen accurately predicted that there would be a character I like, the biologist survivalist. So we'll see where the story goes from here. We discuss it Monday, so I'm a little bit behind. I I think those of you who listen regularly know I was reading the whole Riddle Master of Tread. Can't talk this morning. Riddle Master of Head trilogy. I got ahead of myself there. Ha ha ha! See what I did there. Um, and I finished the first two books. I got the bundle on Kindle because I prefer to read on Kindle instead of on paper these days. And I'm partway through the third book, which is which I should know what's the second one is Heir of Sea and Fire, and Harpist on the Wind is the third book. Which I'm realizing now I forgot to update my spreadsheet because, of course, I track what I read to show my transition from the one book to the next. Oops. I don't like it when my spreadsheets aren't correct. It turns out that I did record that I finished Heir of Sea and Fire, but when I added the entry for the book 3, I called it Heir of Sea and Fire again instead of changing the title. We can all stand down. There's no emergency now. I know. I love my lists, love my spreadsheets. But I was getting a little tired of that. I haven't loved that trilogy. I don't think I did ever read it, or maybe I skimmed it. There are parts that are vaguely familiar. Um, but this book 3, I'm pretty sure I never read book 3. And it's kind of boring. I'm sorry, Patricia. I love you. I love you. Kind of bored with this third book. So I ended up stopping reading it because a friend of mine asked me to do an emergency beta read on her book, which is a Christmas historical romance. Funny to be reading it this time, but it's great. So I stopped and was reading that for her. And then realized that the end of the month and the book club meeting was onrushing. And fortunately, I finished like up through where she had revised, up through page 270. So then I had a little breathing room, and I'm hoping to finish Light Pirate this weekend, which I should because I'm already like halfway through it. Probably all more than you needed to know. Although I am going to talk about media consumption because I've been binging Sex and the City, which I'd never watched back in the day. And it's been an interesting show to watch. Longtime listeners know that I binged Big Bang Theory. I like having this show that's like a half an hour comedy sitcom that I can watch at the end of the evening as just like kind of the final wind down. And then I usually get in bed and read. But it's nice to have the funny something. I like that kind of dose. I don't know what I'm going to do after Sex and the City. If you have recommendations, let me know. Yeah, it's been great watching this one. Um, and I think it's interesting watching the evolution of the show over the course of it. That's one of the great things about, like binging all the seasons at once. Um, because the core trajectory through the whole series is the relationship among the 4 women. And they really leaned into it, especially now. I'm almost done. I'm on the penultimate episode, I think. And they really, especially in this final season, leaned into the friendships, leaned into, like the women have all, because the show's ending, right? Sort of like they're no longer going from guy to guy to guy, and it's no longer quite so focused. It is focused on the men, on the relationships with men, but it's also focused on their own trajectories, what they're going through, their personal arcs, and their friendships with each other. And probably other people have made this point before, but this is a very classic story structured trope that's that they really leaned into towards the end. I don't know if they planned it from the beginning. I don't think it's as clear in the beginning, but at this end of the 6th season, you can really see that they leaned into this, that Carrie Bradshaw, that character, is the protagonist. She's the narrator. She is the person that the show is about. And then her three friends represent the heart, mind, and body. Joss Whedon also used this structure in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But it's interesting to see it at work in Sex and the City, especially the way they lean into it at the end, because Charlotte is heart. She is always about romance. She's about things being happy. You know, she wants a baby. She wants love. She's always encouraging the others to seek out love, to seek out happiness. Sometimes she seems almost a little too Pollyanna, a little too sensitive, but she does things out of love, right? Um, Samantha is the body. Samantha is the very, very sexual one who is unashamed of her body. She's naked often in the show. She is um, embraces her sexuality, her storyline. And I didn't talk about Charlotte's storyline, but I should. But you know, Samantha's trajectory at the end, you know, she's dealing with breast cancer. She's dealing with a problem of the body. Charlotte is dealing with, you know, having a baby, finding love at last, finding love in someone who was not her typical love interest, and reconciling what she's going to do with her love. And then Miranda is mind. Miranda is the lawyer. She is the one who is sometimes too much in her head, where it took her a long time to figure out that she was in love with Steve. She holds the others to this standard of rationality that can be frustrating sometimes. I see occasional posts about people not liking Miranda because she takes like Carrie to task and she takes the others to task, you know, and she feels like a rigid character, but she's not actually a rigid character. She's mind. She's the intellectualism. She is the analytical one. Um, and Carrie gets advice from all three of them. You can also think about it in terms of that Carrie is spirit, but I don't think it plays out very well in that show. I've seen people break down Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the same way, but I don't think it's as clear. I don't think that Whedon leaned into it as much as they did with Sex and the City. And I think once I'm done with the show, any minute now, I'm going to watch the movies, which I never did either. Um, I bet they won't do it as much. It's something that works better in an episodic format. But for you writers out there, this is an interesting way to set up a cast of characters, you know, that you can. I think it works well to do it with this model where you have one who is essentially the protagonist, the hero. Carrie Bradshaw is the hero of this story, and the others are her influences, the warring battle of heart, mind, and body. Uh, there are other you could do it with five characters where one is also soul, but I think you need to have that core protagonist. For me, you know, I don't really plan out my stories that way. They just sort of evolve that way. I suspect Sex and the City evolved that way. I never read the original book, the Candace Bushnell book. Um, so I don't know if she set it up that way thematically, but it's an interesting way to do things. It's a cool way to set up your characters if you're someone who prefers to think about your characters in those terms. The other is obvious. A classic one is The Wizard of Oz, which is laid out for you, right? You know, where the Scarecrow is searching for his brains, the Tin Man is searching for his heart, and the Lion is searching for his courage. So, you know, you have mind, heart, and body, with Dorothy being the protagonist, accompanied by these influences. Yeah, so it's a cool way to do things. What else do I have to tell you all? It's it's been a busy week for me. I did get through my first pass pages on Never the Roses. I did 2 long days on Monday and Tuesday. I tracked how long it would take me to, of course, how long it would take me to review those. Basically, it was reading the book and marking out any corrections. I mainly wanted to check for a couple of, because someone else is reading it too, a real proofreader. So I wasn't too worried about being the one to catch the mistakes. But as Agent Sarah pointed out, this was my last chance to make sure everything was in there that I wanted. And I did find one continuity error, so I was glad I caught that. And then I added a couple things here and there. And it's interesting because, and this is an eternal conundrum for writers, getting what's on your head onto the page. It's the biggest struggle. And a couple of people who have read this book, my author friends, not regular readers, but authors who question everything. And I mean, that's just, we have editor brain, we can't turn it off. But two different people, two or three maybe. So it was enough to make me pay attention. So that's one thing, is like if one person mentions a thing and nobody else does, then, you can, write it off. But if several people, for me, if it's like if three people say, "Oh, well, I didn't understand this," so I went and looked, and it's explained. It's right there in the text, and they all said maybe I missed it, and they did all miss it. And so then the question becomes, how how much do you want to go back and hammer it and say this is the reason for this thing? You have to say it in that voice too. um, and in this case, I added a few lines, not even lines, phrases here and there to reinforce how this thing works. But otherwise, it's like, it's there. And yeah, it's just a choice. You just have to decide. And I know now, because several people said they didn't understand this, that there will be people out there saying that they don't understand this, and then hopefully there will be other readers where they will say, "Look here on page X, it is explained why this is this way." Book two is going into this particular facet of the world building more deeply. Um, just because it's more relevant to the story. See, that's the thing, is like when people ask you on revision to explain a thing, they're like, "Well, can you give us more about this world building?" The great risk you run, they're saying, "Oh, well, I just want to understand this better." But you, as the writer, you have to go back in and figure out how to weave that in without weighing it down with, because every time you add in explanation, exposition, backstory, world building information, you risk weighing down the pace. And the person saying, "I would just like to understand more about this," they don't care about you weighing down the pace. It becomes your problem to solve. And it's not always easy. And yeah, sometimes I make the choice to not bog down the pace by explaining too much. And which is why I'm always going to get readers saying that sometimes they don't understand things. But as long as I feel like I've put it in there, then I think I'm happy with it, right? You are always going to have people who don't understand parts of your story. And as long as you feel like you've put it in there, I'm going to wave the permission wand and say, yeah, it can be in there, and you can just leave it. But yeah, it's not easy. So anyway, I ended up doing 5 1-hour sessions for 2 days, so 10 hours altogether. First day, I read at an average of 34 pages an hour. Second day, 40 pages an hour. Especially towards the ending, I got really fast. Had my two best hours, 48 and 43 pages. I don't know if that was just because I had the end in sight, or if written and revised more recently. I don't know. Endings always go faster for me. So yeah, and then I sent those in, and I got an okayish day Wednesday, a not great day yesterday. So I think that took more out of me than I expected. I thought, oh, it's just reading, but it's not, is it? I engaged that story brain. Made a lot of notes for book two, so that was a good exercise for that. And as it is, my September, woohoo, you all can celebrate with me, is already my best word count month for a year. For a year, since last October. And there's no way I can beat last October. It was better by a whole lot, by like 10,000 words. But between today and Monday, I'll get even more. And so I'm happy. I feel like I've got my mojo back. This book is going well. Um, my friend Kelly Robson asked me yesterday how it was going, and I said, it's going okay, but I'm having a little bit of angst because I'm not sure where the story is going. And she said, well, I thought with your process, you never know where the story is going. And I had to write her back in all caps, like, what is your point, Kelly? So, yeah, that's me. And on that note, I hope you all have a fabulous weekend. And I will talk to you all on Monday. You all take care. Bye bye.